A lot has happened to me in 10 years.
Yeah.
I got a haircut.
You're looking good.
Thank you.
Wade, you're looking good.
I have a 9-year-old.
Wow. Well, you guys have not aged a bit. Whoa, abrupt ending. That was actually our original opening that nobody ever saw.
And there's a reason for that.
I think it's funny.
Notice the Lee Strasberg level of acting the subtlety that I bring to it.
Yeah.
It's a little depressing. It's a little depressing, but that's okay.
We're here to do an Oscar special, which was released like 4 hours ago, right? 5:30 a.m.
Yes, and one of the most embarrassing announcements I've ever seen.
Go on.
I mean, it's just that what they've tried to do with the announcements is migrate away from what used to just be a very simple bring out two movie actors or a member of the Academy and a movie actor and just read off some nominations. Now they're making a big production out of it. And they couldn't even get any movie actors. They got two television personalities. And they came out and they did some horribly written shtick, utterly embarrassing. And then they went to a bunch of remotes all around the country that had just ordinary average people help weigh in on the nominations. They went through all the nominations, not just the top 5. And then they had this guy who's a professional who's a professional movie fan, who's actually he's like a PA on, Magnificent Mrs. Maisel. And he's weighing in with the goofiest comments, like fan comments. I mean, it was really embarrassing. And the whole thing seemed to be structured around the idea of, hey, look, these are the Oscar nominations. And look, we're down with the people and we're not racist and we don't hate anybody. And it's just more of the Academy's insecurity complex. And I just found the whole affair really, really irritating.
The only thing I found irritating was the fact that these were not two movie people.
Because they couldn't get movie people, because I think movie people took a look at the script and the structure of what they were going to do, and they said, I'm not embarrassing myself like that.
Well, either way, they did wind up reading off all the nominations, and we do want to get to the big 4. We'll get to snubs and surprises. We'll get to some general thoughts. Wade, what do you say we dig into it?
Let's do it.
So, Wade, obviously, Power of the Dog, revisionist Western, 12 nominations that led the pack. Followed by Dune, 10 Oscar nominations, mostly craft stuff. Here's all the Best Picture nominees, which we'll dive into first. We have Don't Look Up, Dune, Power of the Dog. Now, Drive My Car was interesting because Drive My Car wound up being nominated for multiple Oscars in some surprising categories. And then we have West Side Story, which I'm not sure if that's surprising or not. Nightmare Alley is surprising. CODA, I feel, is overpraised. It's a very nice film. King Richard, the best pure Hollywood mainstream film of the year, I think. That was terrific. That's also nominated. Belfast and Licorice Pizza. Wade, what are your thoughts?
So of the 10, there are only 4 that can be legitimately considered in the running because they're also nominated for screenplay and director. And, that's kind of the giveaway. You have rarely had the Argos or the Driving Miss Daisies where it wins without having a director nominated. So if you have a picture, a director, and a screenplay nomination, that puts you up on top. And the only 4 films that have that is Drive My Car, Belfast, Licorice Pizza, and Power of the Dog. So Best Picture is almost certainly going to be one of those 4. Power of the Dog, even though it has the most nominations, you know what? Last year, Mank had the most nominations as well. Also a Netflix film, didn't win it. Why? Because I think a substantial portion of the Academy resents Netflix. They feel like it's killing their business. It's going to kill. It aims to kill theatrical. So much as I love Jane Campion, and I don't think this is a great Jane Campion film, by the way. I still think The Piano is her masterpiece. There's a lot to love about this film, but it's not top tier. It's just a revenge movie. So I think The Power of the Dog got its reward with 12 nominations. I don't see it winning. That leaves Licorice Pizza, which I think underperformed in these nominations. It did not get a Best Actress nomination for Alana Haim, which I think was really surprising. It just got 3 nominations: picture, director, and screenplay. And that's basically 3 nominations for Paul Thomas Anderson. We love Paul Thomas Anderson. Didn't get any acting nominations, so that's a little tough to see that pulling through if it didn't get love in the other categories. That leaves Belfast, which I predicted would be an odds-on favorite right after I saw it at the premiere, and Drive My Car, which has kind of run the table on the Critics Awards. Drive My Car, is 3 hours long, and I think it's a little overpraised. So right now, I'm going to go on a limb, and barring anything else happening, I kind of feel like Belfast is the film to beat.
Well, first of all, Wade, no one cares what you think. The other thing that I want people to know is that when it comes to the nominations, there are 2 things that we have to remember in terms of handicapping these things, right? Between, let's say, 5 years ago and now, there's a lot more international members. So it is of the academies, they've tried to diversify their ranks and beef them up. So it's harder to just look at, let's say, what SAG voted for, right? So SAG has the most members of any of the guilds, right? If SAG likes something, it's got a good shot at winning because there's more members. But there's so many more international members now who are not members of the guilds that becomes a wild card. The other wild card, of course, is the fact that there's 10 Best Picture nominees. So it's hard to be able to match up director and picture.
It's very true. The new Academy membership that has kind of come in just in the last 5 years has pulled the prognostication away from the Guild Awards. The Guild Awards used to be a pretty good barometer, right? You used to be able to kind of triangulate. Okay, it got a SAG nomination, it got a Screen Editors nomination, and DGA like the WGA, and you used to be able to kind of figure out where the trends were there. And that's true. The new Academy membership has pulled it far away from the American guilds. And Parasite being an example. Parasite without that new international membership wouldn't necessarily have won. But I do still feel like we're in a weird pandemic bubble. And people are, a lot of these films would not have been nominated in another year. Dune, for example, would, I think, have probably done better if everyone had been forced to see it in a theater. A lot of people wound up seeing it at home on HBO Max, not going to the theater. Dune is a tremendous experience with IMAX and the sound and the screen. I mean, it's an enormous thing. It got 10 nominations. Take nothing away. People clearly respect it, but it did not get a directing nod for Denis Villeneuve, which is a little weird. You get 10 nominations, right? And the one that it doesn't get is director. That's weird.
Yeah, so I think also because a lot of people sort of think that he's the one who's almost single-handedly getting credit for being able to wrestle this unfilmable novel.
I mean, it's amazing. It gets 10 nominations, but the director's branch didn't give him any love. So that's a little weird. I do kind of feel like if people had seen that film in the theaters, that would be more of a favorite, and it would have gotten maybe another 1 or 2 nominations.
Well, the other thing that's interesting is that, and you talk about how people have to watch these things at home now, and luckily I have a home, which is great. I'm not homeless anymore. Dune is the only one of these Best Picture nominees that cleared $100 million at the box office. Yeah. Nightmare Alley only made 10. Spielberg's, West Side Story only made 35. That flamed out spectacularly and surprisingly, or maybe not, depending on who you talk to. But the issue is that without theatrical, you don't get the groundswell of excitement and press coverage and just general pop cultural crossover that you used to get when movies came out and they just played in 2,000 theaters for weeks and weeks and people talked about them. So I feel like with a lot of these films, it's a little bit like there's nothing that's really bubbling. I know there was and we could talk about this maybe a little bit with snubs, but there was the idea that maybe Spider-Man would be nominated for Best Picture just because it's a $1.8 billion worldwide behemoth. People are giving it credit for doing what Tenet and what No Time to Die couldn't do, which is get people back to the theaters in a huge, huge way. Yeah. And I think maybe the thought was that the Academy would reward it for reminding people that the movie experience in a theater is really what drives everything.
And I totally agree. And that's why I think Power of the Dog is not going to win, because people simply do not want to validate Netflix's business model and say you can win Academy Awards now by ignoring theatrical experience. It's not going to happen.
Now we do have we can take viewers. They can chime in. Richard chimes in. Power Dog least worthy nominee since Brooklyn.
First of all, Richard, thank you for actually watching the show. We have one viewer.
Yeah.
Yes. We dedicate this answer to Richard. Here's the thing. I feel with Power of the Dog, I really agree with Wade. It feels like Minor Campion. It feels one of those movies that you feel you should like, and it has that indie heft to it, but it just feels thin to me. It just is. I didn't find it all that engaging.
Here's what I would say. If that exact same story and that exact script were put into the hands of a less poetic director, would you love the story? And the answer is no. It would just be a Western revenge film.
Well, people are excited that Jane Campion has returned, right? So people are ready to praise it, if not overpraise it, automatically because Jane Campion has returned, right?
And she may well win Best Director. And that would be the award, but I don't see it winning Best Picture. I just don't.
Well, the thing with Belfast is, I don't know. I mean, we kind of went back and forth on email last night about this. Belfast, I feel, is kind of diminishing a little bit in my eyes. I liked it fine. It didn't feel like this hope and glory experience for me. I understand that the movie's important to Kenneth Branagh, which I get and I respect and I like that. But for me, it didn't really click with me.
But here's the thing: look at the 10. One of these has to win. I mean, that's the thing. West Side Story. Okay.
Richard also says Belfast overpraised.
It probably is. It probably is. I mean, I really love it, but would it be my top film in another year? Look, I look at these 10. Here's what I would ask you to do: look at these 10 and then compare them to the 10 films from 1939. For example,
when you start talking about like 1969 and some of these great films in the 70s, 76,
there's nothing here that stands up to any of those previous films. I mean, this is a weak year overall.
But
it's still pandemic.
Haven't the last few years been weak years?
Yeah, the last 10 years have been weak. But look, West Side Story is only there because, we don't want to humiliate Spielberg and admit that his musical is not as good as the original. Power of the Dog, we already talked about. Nightmare Alley doesn't really belong there, but everyone loves Guillermo del Toro, and they figured we didn't give Bradley Cooper the supporting actor nomination we were expecting to, so we'll give him one for producer. Okay,
Elaine says she loves the story of Nightmare Alley. Love the original, and the 2021 version is excellent as well.
Love you, Elaine, but it's it takes an hour to dig itself out of that carnival. That is just an endless opening hour, and then it kind of gets moving.
And
I mean,
why no noms for Pig?
Because nobody takes Nicolas Cage seriously anymore.
Exactly.
What he does. It's like how many movies did Bruce Willis release this year? It's like 9 movies. It's like nominating a Bruce Willis film. There's just too many of them, and they're not very good.
And look, in fairness, Pig was only praised because of Nicolas Cage, but ultimately it's a movie about a guy who goes on a revenge quest for a pig. It's not that far different from Power of the Dog. Just made for less money. One's a dog.
But let's say Pig starred Daniel Day-Lewis in his return to filmmaking.
It was directed by Jane Campion,
huh?
And it was directed by Jane Campion.
That would run the table. It would run the table.
Yeah.
Before we move on to our next category, Brad Ross would like to know any undeserving nominees.
There's always undeserving nominees. I mean, everybody is deserving to a certain extent, but in terms of like OMG, I guess if you go down the list, I'm scrolling down the list really quick to see if there's anybody where it's like, really? Okay, Judi Dench in Belfast, maybe.
You mean overall? Or in picture? In picture, I don't think CODA, Don't Look Up, or Nightmare Alley belong there. The other, I don't think West Side Story belongs there, but I get it.
CODA does not belong there. Nightmare Alley does not belong there. I moderately defend Don't Look Up. It's a very self-satisfied tisk kind of movie, but it took a lot of satirical shots and hit a lot of them. It had a lot of things to say, and it said them in a way that was entertaining. So I defended a little bit, but it was a pretty self-satisfied, smug little movie.
And before we move on to the next category, Elaine, very happy to see the show back. Boo, Wade. Mark was wrong. Wade is wrong. Back where we used to be. Me right. Mark and Wade are wrong. Deja vu.
Something's never changed.
Yeah, the fans are still here. All right. Let's go to the next. Now I got to find this. Hold on. Here we go. Want to go to actor next or director?
Let's do it.
Actor.
So, Best Actor, obviously, as you can see, Benedict Cumberbatch, Javier Bardem, Andrew Garfield, Will Smith, and Denzel Washington. A bit of a surprise, although I love everything Denzel Washington has ever done and will do in the future. because he's the best. I was moderately surprised at that. But what are your initial thoughts?
I think Denzel Washington is now officially in Meryl Streep territory. I think if you were shooting home video on the street and he happened to walk through the frame in the background, he would get a nomination.
Or if he was in Pig.
Exactly. I mean, look, is he? I think he is doing the best he can with Macbeth. I'm not a big fan of Macbeth. I think there are a lot of problems with it. I don't think Joel Cohen is the best director for that material. I think it's a little too consumed with style, and I think the tone is very drab and lackluster. And again, I love the play. I saw Patrick Stewart do it on stage in London, which was spectacular. And I was not a fan of the other Macbeth from just a few years ago, which was much more faithful. I thought that had problems too. So, I mean, Denzel does the best that he can, but he's Denzel, and I guess they probably look at it and think it's a heavy lift, and he's Denzel, so he'll get nominated for anything. Will Smith in King Richard is phenomenal. I mean, he's phenomenal. He's going to win, and I think he deserves to win. He absolutely carries that film. That film is heartfelt. It's a tear-jerker. It feels like, you said it, it's an old school Hollywood movie. It's the kind that used to win and get nominated for these awards routinely. We used to have films like this all over the place. So I think as that kind of a throwback, I'm really grateful for it. It's a Warner Brothers film. It was made by a studio, not a streamer, not an indie, So I do really, really support King Richard. It doesn't have a shot at picture, but I do think he'll win Best Actor deservedly. There was some discussion when he decided to make this film, to produce it and cast himself in it. There were some colorism accusations that he's not dark enough, because Richard Williams is very dark, and that was a big part of the racism that he experienced in his life. But this movie doesn't get into his life. It's about him and the girls, and Venus and Serena, and that tandem and the family. It doesn't get into his earlier life, which is pretty horrific. And he had a railroad spike driven through his leg by Klansmen at one point. I mean, pretty horrible stuff. So that's why the colorism accusation was kind of floating in the ether. But I think that's gone now that people have seen the film, and people respect what he did. He did right by the family. So I think Will Smith for sure. Andrew Garfield in Tick, Tick, Boom is great. Any other year, he would probably win this, but it's a Netflix film, so it's going to catch a little flack, and it didn't get a lot of love in other categories. Cumberbatch, Power of the Dog, what can you say? He's kind of weird in that movie. I mean, he's good, but he's weird. And Javier Bardem in the Ricardos, I don't know why that got nominated for anything. I think that's just a throwing him a peanut. I think he was miscast. I think he's too old for the part, just like Kidman is. And I didn't think it was good. I really hate that film. So I say Will Smith.
I'm really hoping it's Will Smith. He deserves it. He's great in it. Andrew Garfield is the one he won't win, but I'm very, very glad he's nominated. I was afraid that film would get overlooked. He's just perfect as that kind of Broadway guy who's living in New York. He's struggling. He's trying to make it. You feel not only his personal story and Larson's personal story, who of course wrote Rent. Before he sadly passed away at a very young age. But you not only feel the personal story, but just the overall idea of the difficulty in creating and getting over that hump, where that first hump in your career that makes you think you're really going to make it. How difficult is that hump to get over? And I think he really kind of embodied that really, really well as obviously portraying Larson well, and singing and the acting and all of it. He's great. I'm really glad he got nominated. He's not going to win. He'll be nominated again someday. But I'm really hoping it's Will Smith, because he's great and he deserves it. It's the best film of the year. Benedict Cumberbatch, sure, why not? It's 12 nominations. He's well liked. He's done a lot of good work too. Javier Bardem, I kind of agree with Wade. I liked him in the movie. I liked the movie more than Wade liked it. I do feel as if Aaron Sorkin, who wrote and directed Being the Ricardos, I felt like he sort of wrestled the story of Lucy and Ricky into what he does, as opposed to just taking Lucy and Ricky and who they are and just telling that story. He took the bits and pieces of Lucy and Lucy and Desi's story. He took the pieces of their story that worked for him and what he's interested in, and made a movie about that, which is different than making a movie about their life.
Yeah, but then he also recreates scenes from I Love Lucy, which are so agonizingly, painfully, stupefyingly unfunny that you just want to cry. And you think, well, I mean, Nicole Kidman has been nominated for an Academy Award for basically proving why Lucille Ball was funny, because she's not. I mean,
I think
it's a
she was. I think she
humiliating
was
film.
nominated because, and we can skip to actress now, actually, because we have a lot to say about that. I think she was nominated because everybody thought it was a miscast, that she was not right for it, and she wound up in the eyes of the Academy, or at least the voting members, being good. So it was kind of like, okay, you nailed it. You were wrong.
I don't think so, but whatever.
Well, before we go to actors, we've got some questions from the audience, some thoughts. What did you all enjoy Benedict Cumberbatch's performance?
I don't know that enjoy is a word I would use. I like Benedict Cumberbatch as an actor. He's intense. I don't think he's right in everything. I think he's a great Sherlock Holmes. You know, I thought he was terrific in The Imitation Game. I think he's a little bit odd as Doctor Strange. You know, he plays this thing. I mean, he's sadistic and weird and repressed and insecure, and there are all of these very strange emotions that don't really belong in the same character, and he kind of convinces you that they do. But did I enjoy him being that really unpleasant, weird guy? Not really.
You know, it's such a, the thing with also is that character is such a hyper masculine character in a way. He winds up being something else, but he in the end, but it's such a hyper masculine character that I don't see Benedict Cumberbatch as being a hyper masculine sort of an actor.
Yeah.
He's got a little bit of that British, you know, tweet thing about him. I think he really had to push himself hard to be that guy, which I guess to some Academy members, the more you try, the more you should be nominated for an Oscar. But he wasn't my favorite. I would have wanted somebody else.
You know, our friend and colleague Ray Green has a great observation about this, which is that the films that tend to get the performances that get nominated and which win tend to not be the best acting, but the most acting. And I think that applies for Cumberbatch here. There's a lot of acting going on.
And Christopher Wells Graham chimes in. Javier Bardem is an odd choice for lead. Ricky was in the title, but was also a supporting character in that film.
It's interesting because, you know, the studios can put actors up for whatever category they think they're most likely to win. Now, obviously, we can't nominate Bardem for Best Actress, but the studios, they sort of triangulate between actor and supporting a lot of times, and they decided obviously that he was the male lead.
They got him as lead, they got her, and they got J.K. Simmons in for supporting, and he's really the best thing about that movie. I mean, he's the only good thing about that movie as far as I'm concerned.
And Travis Rink agrees on being the Ricardos. It feels like a TV movie.
Yeah.
Well, I think what's funny is it's interesting because I think that Sorkin admits, to his credit, that he's not an amazing director. So he has to have DPs and cinematographers who are going to kind of push him and make some of these decisions for him, which is fine. I respect that. But in the end, he's a theater and TV guy, right? A theater is like this, TV's like this, movies are like this, right? So I don't know that he's necessarily expanded his visual language that much as he's become a movie director. If you look at the stuff he's done, right? What's you know, social he wrote, but like Molly's Game. Molly's Game is not a huge thing, right? It's not a huge visual spectacular. And Trial of the Chicago 7 does have some stuff that's a little bit wider. Some of the rioting, you know, you big exterior wide shots, rioting, smoke, extras running all over the place. That's fine. But generally speaking, he's a theater and TV guy. He's not a movie guy.
You know, I feel like Mark, I feel like you should go on Quora and find that person who says, what's the difference between movies and television and theater? And you should go, movies are like, TV is like this, and theater's like this, and movies are like this. And that's the answer.
That was actually my PhD thesis, a doctorate.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, the movies are like this, theater's like this, but wait, movie, TV's like this. No, wait, watch, because there's more to it. Theater's like this, but wait, see, here's what gets interesting. Movies.
This is why Mark took 10 years off. he was coming up with his thesis.
Wow.
All right, let's go to actress.
So actress, we have Jessica Chastain, Olivia Colman, Penelope Cruz, Nicole Kidman, Wade's favorite, and Kristen Stewart. Now, Wade, obviously the big conversation here is whether Kristen Stewart was going to make it or not, right?
She didn't get the SAG award, I know.
Say again?
She didn't get the SAG nomination.
That was the weird thing. But again, it's a different time now, right?
Yeah.
Just because you don't get a craft or guild nomination, that doesn't mean you're not going to get
True.
an Oscar nomination anymore. Now, I think another thing to think about was whether people were just Diana'd out, right?
Yeah.
You have The Crown, and you had that horrible flop of a Broadway show, Diana the Musical, and now you have this, and it was just whether it's just going to be just a bridge too far Diana-wise. But obviously the Academy didn't think so, or at least the Acting Guild didn't think so, which is weird. I really mixed on that film. I liked it a lot when I saw it, but it's again, much like Power of the Dog, it's kind of diminishing with time. And although I love Pablo Larraín, I thought Jackie was amazing.
Not such a huge fan of Jackie. I like parts of it. I think, same thing with Spencer. It has its moments. She's good, not great. Nicole Kidman, I don't think is good. Penelope Cruz is very good in Parallel Mothers. But what's weird is that here's this Almodovar film that got enough love for a Best Actress from the Actors branch, but the rest of the Academy, at least the members of the Foreign Language Committee, obviously didn't love it enough to give it an international film. We're calling it now the International Film nomination. Olivia Colman, she's won before. I don't see her getting another one this soon. Lost Daughter. Jessica Chastain, Eyes of Tammy Faye. She's great. She's amazing. The makeup is shockingly freakish. But is the movie good enough? No. Here's the thing. None of these films are nominated for Best Picture. None of these films have a Best Director nomination. Being the Ricardos is the one that has, I think, maybe the most other nominations. The Lost Daughter, Betty Buckley, or Jessie Buckley, sorry. Jessie Buckley was nominated for Lost Daughter as well. That's interesting. Two actresses nominated for, young and older versions of the same character in the same movie. I don't know if that's ever happened before. But
I'm not sure, but I'm glad she was nominated.
I am too. I think Buckley and
I love that
Coleman
movie.
are
It's
a
a great movie.
tandem.
It's one of the best films of the year.
It's a terrific film. So honestly, I kind of feel like this is a very strange category, and it's wide open. I don't know who could win here. Possibly Penelope Cruz in like a weird split.
Well, what I'm hoping is that for Kristen Stewart, the nomination is the award, right?
Yeah,
that's fine. I don't know that she would win, but I'm hoping that much like when, let's say, Paul Newman won for Color of Money, or when Scorsese won Best Director finally for The Departed, people might say it's Penelope Cruz's time now. She's been doing great work for decades now. She's awesome. Let's just give it to her. It might be one of those it's time kind of wins.
And that's kind of my gut here. It's not time for Jessica Chastain because she's great in the movie. Olivia Colman, she's already got one. Nicole Kidman hardly needs this award. Kristen Stewart really kind of doesn't need the award either, to be honest. But Penelope Cruz, I think you're right. So I mean, I don't think I still think it's a wide open category. But if I had to place a bet, I would probably place it on Penelope Cruz.
Now, we're going to talk about Lady Gaga when we get to the snubs, but regarding Kristen Stewart, I think the reason why I bumped on her a little bit is that I understand the wisdom of casting her in the sense that she has lived that same paparazzi-fueled life as Princess Diana. And Wade, I'm curious to get your thoughts. So I understand I understand casting her and how their stories match up, and there's something there to mine. But I really have always found her a cold fish, and I think that as an actress, and I think that if you're going to play Diana, you really got to feel for her. You really got to feel for her, and it's difficult to feel for somebody who had all that fame and that wealth and that kind of a lifestyle. To really feel for that kind of person, you can't be the kind of a little bit of a cold fish that I find Kristen Stewart to be as an actress. Wade?
I agree completely. I did not. For those of us who remember Diana very well from the endless overexposure and harassment she suffered through the press, there is a warmth there that is not part of Kristen Stewart's performance. That is not part of Kristen Stewart. I mean, she's just not that warm on screen. Naomi Watts, I thought, was closer when she played Diana. I think whoever played her on The Crown, pretty good. But again, you're kind of. It's a tough hill to climb, and Being the Ricardos has the same problem too. It's a tough hill to climb when you have to portray someone who is immortal in the minds of everyone in the media, who has just been photographed and filmed and videoed until the end of time. Thousands and thousands of hours of Diana out there. You are never, ever going to convince someone that you are that person. It's just too high of a hill to climb. I mean, look at all the actors who played JFK on screen. Do any of them even come close? No. It's just too high of a hill to climb. So, you know, playing someone who is that overexposed in the media and who is that sort of who lingers in our memory still is a really it's a tough thing to do. So appreciating that, I think she did the best she could, but I don't see it.
That's why, you know, back then, whenever this was, maybe 5-7 years ago, anybody who thought that Daniel Day-Lewis should not win for Lincoln, I was like, come on. Daniel Day-Lewis is Lincoln. That's like a Mount Rushmore performance. I mean, he is, by the way, dude's not even American, but then again, neither is Superman or a couple of Batmen or Wonder Woman. It's funny how like a lot of these like American iconic characters are always played by British people, and they knock it out of the park. They're great. Anyway, so it is possible.
Anthony Hopkins is Nixon.
Say again?
Anthony Hopkins is Nixon.
And he made a great Nixon.
Yeah.
You know? So maybe Mr. Bean should play JFK. I mean, it's possible. No. Okay. So next we
well, hold on. I got one thing. Is even though you guys, you know, Kristen Stewart's a little cold, you guys thought, is this the best performance of her career so far, though?
That's a good question.
Best performance in her career. Well, let's see. I definitely I mean, what, Twilight? You know what she was very good in? She was very good in the Olivier Assayas film Personal Shopper.
I was just going to say that too. I think Personal Shopper is probably her best performance, actually.
I would say Personal Shopper, no doubt about it. And Clouds of Sils Maria too, but Personal Shopper to me was great.
Yeah. So we're going to director next.
We're going to director next, ladies and gentlemen. So, by the way, whoever did these fabulous graphics, thank you so much.
Elaine Ewing coming back in.
Thank you so much. Yay for Elaine. So we have Kenneth Branagh. We have Ryosuke Hamaguchi for Drive My Car. We have Jane Campion, who's probably going to win. We have Paul Thomas Anderson for Licorice Pizza. And that guy there with the hat, not sure his name. So Wade, yeah. Okay, so the guy with the hat, whose name we're not sure, the guy on the right, he's probably not going to win, right?
You might know him. He directed a movie quite a while ago called 1941. Did you ever see that?
I knew you were going to say 1941. I knew it. I knew you were going to say it. I had you down. I knew that joke was coming.
Yeah.
So is this pretty much in the bag for Campion?
Yeah, I think it is. You know, so here are a lot of things that are going on with the Academy. The Academy is, I'm just going to go out with it and say the Academy is in trouble. The movie business is not quite in trouble, but the Academy is in trouble. The ratings have been plummeting for the last decade. It's on the audience has been just evacuating the show, and the pandemic has obviously added to that to a significant degree. The other thing is the Academy is caught between these competing impulses. It wants to be relevant. It wants to recapture its audience, but it's very sensitive to accusations of sexism and not being diverse enough and being racist and you know, Oscar's so white and all that stuff. It's very, very sensitive to its image. Part of the and they've remedied a lot of that with this broader membership, this more global membership. That's you know, now we have fewer personal friends and publicists and executives kind of, you know, passing their ballots off to their housekeepers and chauffeurs, and you know, all those shenanigans are kind of now diluted by a much bigger membership around the world. So it's a more representative body of elite artists. That helps. At the same time, I think they are overly concerned with image still. And Spielberg being in here with West Side Story is kind of throwing a bone to that. Cool. The first West Side Story to actually have, you know, an authentic Latino cast. And if it doesn't get nominated and the original did, how will we look that we're not, you know, I think that factored into a lot of thinking. So there's a lot of wokeness to nominating West Side Story and nominating Spielberg for it. I don't think it's a very good film. It got fewer nominations than the original one won. So
I saw that movie with you, and you loved it.
Yeah, we said the same thing after. We said, why? You leaned over to me and said, why? And I said exactly what I was thinking.
I really did. When that movie was over, I literally I mean, this is absolutely what happened. I'm not making this up. When it was over, and it was like directed by Steven Spielberg, I leaned over to Wade and I said, "Why?"
and in that very moment, it was like you read my mind. That was exactly what was in my head. Was just why it was so pointless. Why remake this? Why not make something else? So Spielberg's not going to win this, obviously. Licorice Pizza, Paul Thomas Anderson. It's only nominated for 3 awards, and all of them are for Paul Thomas Anderson. It didn't get enough love it got no love for its performances. Alana Haim, I'm sorry, talking about snubs. Gaga and Alana Haim. I thought they would both be an actress. Alana Haim is amazing. She's wonderful. She's a revelation. But I think you have to be from LA or to really know LA to appreciate Licorice Pizza to any significant degree. Bradley Cooper, again, snub. Didn't get nominated for playing John Peters.
Don't jump forward, Wade. We're not doing snubs yet.
Okay, fine.
There was a rundown. We talked about it.
So I don't think Licorice Pizza has a shot. Drive My Car, I would be stunned. So, it's between Branagh and Campion. And I think Campion wins this, and I think Belfast wins picture.
As I was gonna say, as somebody not from LA, I didn't get Licorice Pizza at all. See? Like, I enjoyed the performances, exactly what you said. I thought the performances were fantastic. I did not understand the age difference at all. It took me out of the movie completely when he's 15. And it wasn't like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where I wasn't in LA during that time, but I felt like I was in the movie. This movie, it could have been anywhere USA. It didn't matter to me, and it just sort of dragged on, and I didn't understand even. It seemed like there was a 4th act. Like, I didn't understand what was going on. It just kind of went and went. But it highlighted amazing performances, and that was about it for me.
Licorice Pizza, I totally concede it meanders, but I love where it meanders because I knew that guy and I knew that girl. And I knew all those places, and I remember that they looked like that. And there were experiences where I thought, "Oh my gosh, that happened to me," and I know somebody that happened to. And I remember Joel Wax. I remember when he was in the closet and he was running for mayor and re-election, and it's like everything just came flooding back.
Right.
So if you grew up here, and if that movie just is like a flashback, on steroids, it really is. But again, if with this new, more international Academy membership. 2/3 of the Academy now are living in other countries. They're looking at Licorice Pizza saying, "I don't get it."
Yeah, I mean, I've been here for 30 years and I don't get it. So I wasn't there. I was here in the 90s, not the 70s, 80s. So yeah.
I think the international members might actually get into the rhythm of that film because it has a very unique rhythm, right? It sort of meanders along and it lopes around at its own little pace. And I think the international viewers and international members, new members of the Academy, they're more used to that, right? I mean, we're very stuck on 3 acts and inciting incidents and that kind of stuff. Yeah. But I think the international members may go for that more, although I agree it's not going to win. But I'm just saying that there might be more love for it than we think because the international members are more used to more challenging, less conventional ways of telling a story.
We'll see.
And then, but I agree. It's going to be Campion. I mean, Spielberg. It's so interesting, and we could talk about this maybe later. But that old Hollywood, new Hollywood thing, right? Which you saw in the 70s, in the early 70s, as the studio system went away and the new Hollywood came in, right? Now old Hollywood is Spielberg, and new Hollywood is Netflix and Apple TV Plus that earned their first Best Picture nomination with CODA. So now there's that transition too. It's curious to see, like, obviously at some point, new Hollywood won in the 70s. But I'm not so sure that streaming is going to win ultimately. Netflix has been trying to buy themselves a seat at the table for years now, and people resented that. But given that the only place for the $40 million adult drama is Netflix now, I think that the Academy is sort of ready to say, hey, it's okay. At least you're doing these sorts of films that we don't have the courage to make anymore because all we do is superhero films.
Maybe. Spielberg should resurrect his motion that there has to be, I think it was a 3-month window. You have to be in theaters for 3 months before you show up on streaming to be eligible for Oscars. I like that. I would add something. I'd say a 3-month window, plus you have to be in 100 theaters. Force Netflix to play the game, to say before it shows up on Netflix, before we use it to recruit people to blow up our subscriber base, which is dropping, by the way, which dropped for the first time ever. We're going to put a movie in theaters, leave it there for 3 months, and we're going to put it in 100 theaters. We're going to at least be respectful of the exhibition experience. Netflix doesn't respect exhibition. They want to crush it. They really do. They want to make theaters go away, despite the fact they're buying a few theaters here and there. They really want streaming to replace it. They see themselves as a paradigm shift, and I think the business has to resist that. It's an intrusion of a Silicon Valley mindset into Hollywood, and it's not good.
But Netflix only took advantage of a process that was already beginning with the IP superhero era, right?
Yeah, but it's not about streaming per se. It's about what ordains a movie as something special. And everything, I say this time and time again, everything about tech is about scalability, and everything about entertainment is about scarcity. You know, scalability, hey, we have a platform, we can put endless amounts of movies and television up there, and we can dump thousands of hours constantly and just scale and get more and more subscribers. Everything about movies is there are only 52 weekends in a year, and there are only so many theaters with so many seats, and there are only so many movies that can fill them. And the scarcity of that means that once you're elevated to that position, you're special. And the Oscars make what's special and scarce even more special and scarce.
Well, there's a fascinating interview with Steven Soderbergh on the Daily Beast, which I forwarded to Wade and our friends Tim Cogshall and Ray Green, where Soderbergh basically said that in the streaming world there is no equivalent jackpot to opening your film in 2,000 theaters and making $1.8 billion worldwide like Spider-Man. There is no equivalent jackpot in streaming for that. Now, you could argue that streamers don't care that there's no equivalent jackpot, or to them, the equivalent jackpot is just an increased subscriber base, which is not as sexy, right, in a press release. But that is true. I mean, for years, and hopefully it'll remain, theatrical is what drives the value, the monetary and pop cultural value of a piece of filmed entertainment is a theatrical release.
Absolutely.
And Netflix is trying to go around that.
They need to stop.
We'll be right back.
There's no break.
Oh. Well, we're back.
We got a couple. There we go. Christopher, theaters are obsolete. You go watch an encoded Blu-ray at 1080 I have at home with my projector.
Watching it all by yourself. That's
theaters. So I would say in movie, we've gone through this before. You know, that when television came around, then they had to migrate movie theaters to, you know, widescreen and color and really improve the experience. If you see Dune on an IMAX screen versus Dune on the best home theater ever, doesn't compare. I watched Dune here. I saw Dune at IMAX in the screen, which they were very, very happy to tell us was the one where Denis Villeneuve mixed it. He watched it. That's where he saw the film, and he made it for that room. And it blew me right out the back wall. It was unbelievable. I watched it again on my spectacular Sony 4K television, just blowing the whole thing up. And I was like, eh.
Now, let me ask you this. So if the TV experience is different than the IMAX experience, and you have to see some of these movies in IMAX, and Netflix is trying to, you know, get that out of the theater, won't that maybe lead to better stories? Because now the story is more important and the characters are more important than the visual effects behind it?
I think we need both. You know, what's going to happen, and it should happen. And again, I'm not opposed to streaming. I think streaming has a place. There are certain movies that belong on streaming so that movies can get back to what they do well. The more that what we have is this confluence where the home theaters have become more like movie theaters. Your living room has become more like a movie theater, and movie theaters have become more like your living room. It's like you go to a movie theater and you got, you know, you kick back like a recliner and there's a table and you got your food and your chips and like, well, I can do that at home. A movie theater needs to be a palace. It needs to be big. You need to have 1,000 people packed into a great big Rococo palace with a balcony and, you know, feel as though you're in a special place with strangers for this amazing experience, which just overwhelms you in a way you can't get at home. We need that experience again. And there are very few movies that sort of fill that space these days. Tons of them used to. You go back into the 60s, you look at the films nominated for Best Picture. These are big movies. These are big epic movies, epic westerns, Lawrence of Arabia and Dr. Zhivago and The Sound of Music and, you know, on and on and on. We don't have a lot of those that sort of fill the screen here other than West Side Story. Even the power, you know, the Campion film is still kind of a small film. Big vistas, but it's still, you know, a very small story. So Belfast fills the screen. I think Belfast is a pretty big story in many respects. So we need big movies again. Big movies, big theaters, big experience.
What's interesting is how Netflix is trying to sort of be that big film experience streamer with stuff like Red Notice and Extraction and the upcoming Gray Man. They also want to have that big, gigantic, shot on 5 continents, chase scenes everywhere sort of experience. But that's not really why I would go to Netflix. That's the reason why, like Red Notice is not very good, but neither is Extraction. But that's why I go to the movies for experiences like that with explosions and extras and vistas and foreign locales. That's why I go to the movies.
And that we didn't talk about the Bond film because those never really get tons of Oscar nominations, but that's what the James Bond films do. That's what people loved, especially about this last one. Yeah, absolutely. You want to feel swarmed by the experience, and it's awfully hard to feel that when you're doing it alone in your underwear or your pajamas. It just isn't the same when you have to go out and sit in a room with strangers, and suddenly your reaction, your laughter, your cheering, your fears, whatever, is validated by 1,000 people sitting around you. There's something to the experience that cannot be replicated, and Netflix doesn't understand. I mean, when you're sitting like I was with 1,000 people watching Last of the Mohicans, and Magua gets it at the end, and 1,000 people go, yeah. That's amazing. When Dirty Harry says, go ahead, make my day, and people cheer, that's a big deal. All of these things are special, and movies are a collective experience. It's not just about the product; it's about the experience.
My fear is that, and then we'll move on to snubs and surprises. But my fear is that, unfortunately, because Wade and I are old. There's a generation now that really just knows stuff on their phone, their
That's
iPad.
fine.
That's how they ingest every single solitary thing they wanted. They want it on their phone, and they want it free, and that's it.
That's fine. They can have the TikTok awards. These aren't for them.
TikTok award. All right. So, Mike, any more questions?
No, it was people disagreeing. I could show you some comments. Elaine gets dressed up to go to the movies. So it's an experience for her.
Yes.
She does.
Love you, Elaine. Good job.
You guys did such a great job, Wade, especially, explaining what a movie theater is. Michelle now wants popcorn.
I do too, actually.
So there you go. It is an experience. You hit the nerve. No, that's it. So let's go over to snubs.
All right. So, whoa. So Wade, snubs. Let's roll through some snubs. Now tell me if you can tell me in like an hour and a half or less. As I go down these snubs, you tell me whether they annoy you, bother you, you care, they should be nominated, should not be. Lady Gaga, House of Gucci. I say she kind of got snubbed.
Everyone in that movie got snubbed. She did kind of get snubbed. There was a lot of love for her, but there's not a lot of love for that movie. I mean, my one-liner on the movie is I love the movie that Jared Leto thinks he's acting in. The actual movie that he's acting in, not so much. But he didn't get a nomination either, even though I think he should have. But it's so campy. The whole movie is so campy, and camp performances tend to not get nominated.
And also Ridley Scott is not like a camp performance kind of director. I feel like he was directing 2 different movies at the same time: the camp film and the family drama about the money and the jewels and the power and the fame.
And that's kind of ironic because Ridley Scott is known for his comedies, isn't he? He's such a funny guy. No, Ridley's not a comedy guy. And I think Ridley probably read the script and thought, this is a great drama. And then I think everyone else read the script and thought, oh, this is high camp. And, Jared Leto just went with it. And I'm not sure, I mean, no disrespect to Ridley, but I'm not sure Ridley thought Jared was anything but accurate.
What's funny is that this is a little bit like Scott's previous film, All the Money in the World, right?
A little bit.
The two have, I feel like there's 2 peas in a pot, a little bit in terms of like why he was attracted to them, in terms of family ties, strained family ties, and money and power.
Yeah,
but I don't feel like that's not his wheelhouse. I think Alana Haim, we both agree, was completely overlooked. Although I guess if you're a SAG member, are you going to give a slot to somebody who literally dropped from the sky? They might feel they'd rather have Nicole Kidman in there or something like that.
Now her amazing performance, how does that reflect on the Best Director, Paul Thomas Anderson nominee? Is that from him being able to, take somebody who's never really acted before and get that kind of
Well,
performance out of her?
he got that performance out of her. I mean, she's never done anything.
Sure.
Right.
You got to
Should
give him
that be
credit for getting that
considered?
kind of performance out of a
Should that
newbie.
be considered for his best director?
Perhaps. I mean, these things all kind of bleed
perhaps.
into each other.
Mhm. You can say the same thing with Rachel Zegler. Is that her name? With West Side Story. Here's someone with not a lot of experience and is leading a gigantic Steven Spielberg film. And I thought the film was fine. I thought she was okay. But he got it out of her, and that's something to his credit. Jennifer Hudson, in respect, some people are saying that's a snub. I didn't like that movie. She's perfectly fine. She's terrific, but I didn't think the movie was that great. So do you think that's a snub, Jennifer Hudson?
I loved her in that movie, and I like that movie a lot. I think there's a lot of really good stuff in that movie. But every year there are certain films which come out. They come out too early and they peak too early, and they're done by the time award season even gets underway. And I think that movie did. And I think here's what I also think hurt her is that there were 2 Aretha Franklin productions, right? There's the movie that she was in, and then there was the TV miniseries with Cynthia Erivo. And I think then there was also like a documentary. I think there was a PBS documentary on Aretha Franklin as well. So I think it was a little bit too much Aretha Franklin too quickly, and then award season got underway, and that was already forgotten. It was like overexposed before it even had a chance to be exposed, if that makes sense. So I think it was just luck of the draw and bad luck with timing.
True. And don't forget, if Daniel Day-Lewis had played Aretha Franklin, then that's a guaranteed Oscar nomination.
Something special.
Unbelievable. Best actor, some people are saying Leonardo DiCaprio had a shot for Don't Look Up. I liked him in that movie, actually. I like the fact that he filled himself out and was a little bit played a little bit low. Except when he had his Peter Finch moment, which is like that Peter Finch, I'm not going to take it anymore network moment.
Yeah.
Was I think the moment a lot of people bailed out of the movie. It was just too self-satisfied and smug, right, and too arrogant to film. But I did like him in the movie. Yes or no? Well, you didn't like that movie.
No, and I don't. I think it's lucky to have gotten a Best Picture nomination. Frankly, I just don't. I don't think much of it. I mean, screenplay I can kind of understand, but I can't. I think that's really stretching it thin. No, don't agree.
Peter Dinklage for Cyrano. Some people said he was bubbling under. Yes, no.
Cyrano is a bad movie. It's a bad idea. It's a bad movie. The songs make it weird. It's already a bad movie without songs, and then the songs come in, and everybody just kind of scratches their head and says, "What am I watching?" I mean, it's a very peculiar vanity piece. It doesn't work on any level whatsoever, and I don't think Dinklage was ever on anybody's dance card. No.
Now, people were saying that Bradley Cooper had a shot for Licorice Pizza, which made no sense to me. But other people, more realistic people, said that he really might have a shot for Nightmare Alley.
I did not think he had a shot for Nightmare Alley at all, even as producer. So that surprises me. I thought for sure he'd get nominated for supporting actor because he's so popular, and because nearly everyone in the Academy has had some kind of interaction with John Peters. And if you've met John Peters, which I have, and if you're familiar with his history, which most people are, that was just one of the great cameos in movie history. It was amazing. It was hilarious. It was spot on. It was not disrespectful. It was, it kind of walked a fine line. And I thought he did a great job with it. I thought he did an absolutely great job.
See, that was so inside. So I watched it in my backyard with a bunch of people, right? I had people over, but a big screen, not the movie experience, but it's with people. And all of us were like, who's he playing? Is that a real person? Like none of us knew who that was. So it's very inside.
All right. So there you go. That's why.
Yeah.
Just tell me you knew who his girlfriend was at the time, Barbra Streisand. Please.
Well, they mentioned her name, but we all didn't know. We didn't know that. Also, nobody's from LA. We didn't know the mayor was an actual thing, right? We thought all these were fictional characters. I think one person said, "Oh, my husband was from here. He can tell you all about this." Because all the rest of us were like, we thought it was all fictional characters, and we were trying to understand what was based on reality. And what wasn't.
And you realize, like, the owner of the Japanese themed restaurant. That's based on a real guy too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, who had 2 different Japanese wives over the course of running the Mikado. And Then you know, Sean Penn is basically playing William Holden.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, you know, there's Lucille Ball.
Yeah,
It was
yeah, I
right.
understood you know, that's why I was like confused what was real and what wasn't, because I understood like she was playing a Lucille Ball character, but it wasn't called Lucille Ball.
Yeah.
So that's why the other one's like, who's based on what? Yeah, it was a little too inside LA and inside movie,
Get it.
you know,
Totally get it.
history.
All right, so real quick, best supporting actress snubs, a couple there, Ruth Negga and then Katrina Balfe. Wade.
You know, Ruth Negga, I'm not surprised by that. That film is not widely beloved. It's beloved by actors a little bit, but other categories, people find it kind of respectable but lackluster.
It's
If I could
it's
put
a
it
little
that way.
airless, and I think a lot of the reason was because people love Rebecca Hall, who directed the film.
Yeah.
People love her as an actress. But I really wanted to respect it, and I did like it a lot, but it was a little too airless. It was a little too arty and airless for me.
It's precious. And she treats it with a little bit too much preciousness. You know, it's almost as if she's afraid to scratch it up a little bit, right? It's her first film, and it looks beautiful, and it has a lot of the flaws of first time directors who do treat their first film like a first child. You know, you're afraid to let them get hurt. You're afraid to let go, to stop protecting them, and you do have to let a movie go and get, you know, scratched up a little bit. Audiences appreciate that, so that's part of the problem there. Katrina Balfe breaks my heart. I mean, she's the heart and soul of Belfast. And I thought for sure she would be nominated. I thought she'd be the front runner because she's so amazing in that film. And what kills me is this is the second time that she is the heart and soul of a Best Picture nominee and doesn't get a nomination. She did the same thing in Ford versus Ferrari. She's the only female presence in that film, and she's the one that you hang on to because the men are just so drunk on their own testosterone that you just connect with her because she sees everything for what it is. And it's kind of the same thing in Belfast. I mean, she's amazing. She's wonderful. She brings you to tears, and you know, second time in a row, no nomination. So I kind of feel like maybe this is her hazing at this point, and next time, you know, third time's the charm. The Academy will finally give her some love because, for my money, you know, she's it. She's the future. She's the new, you know, Kate Blanchett.
And then people were also surprised by Jamie Dornan. Speaking of Belfast, that one doesn't bother me as much as you know, Katrina Balfe.
And mind you, you know, Jamie Dornan, I mean, he's good in Belfast. I didn't see him as a front runner, so I'm a little bit surprised that, you know, the two nominations from that thing went to Karen Hines, who's fine, and to Judi Dench, who basically sits around and looks old for 10 minutes. I mean, that's all she does in the movie. I love Judi Dench, but it's like a Meryl Streep thing. It's like Judi Dench, she sat there, she looked old. Let's give her a nomination. I mean, come on, you know. But you know, she won an award for like a 5-minute cameo in Shakespeare in Love. So I
she might
guess
do it again.
that. But the one that really surprises me is Jamie Dornan not getting nominated for his other great performance, which almost got him an award with LAFCA.
Which was,
come on, you know.
Jamie Dornan.
Barb and Star go to Vista Del Mar.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
You love them. By the way, I like the
film.
movie a lot too. You love that movie.
That film. I think it's hilarious. And he's great in it. And he gets to use his Irish accent, which he does in Belfast too. But, you know, it's a little unusual in an American film. But, you know, he has musical numbers in that thing. He is hilarious. And you don't expect Jamie Dornan to be hilarious. He should have been nominated for Barb and Star.
That's great. By the way, one last snub, and then we'll wrap it up. Mike Faced, I thought, for West Side Story.
Say again?
Snubbed. Huh?
Who did?
Mike Faced.
For West Side Story? I don't know. I mean, what are we talking about? One of the actors?
Yes. He played what's his name? He played
Riff?
Huh?
Riff?
Yeah, he played Riff. He played Riff.
Okay. Yeah. See, I don't know anybody's name in that cast. I really don't.
The guy who played Riff was great.
It's not worth my time. I didn't like the movie.
Exactly.
Yeah, I didn't see him as really having a shot. Ariana DeBose is the only one who ever really had a shot. Partly because A, she's good, and then B, there's the sentimental factor, which is, oh, she's playing the Rita Moreno part, so we've got to nominate her so that there's so we can have Rita Moreno like present her with the award at the Oscars, and it'd be so sentimental. And people get caught up in these scenarios that they invent for themselves. So I think that's partly a lot to do with her getting nominated, but nobody else in that movie really deserved a nomination.
Got it. So Wade, so Mike, here's the thing. Do we have any final thoughts on as we hit the 1 hour mark of this very special, brand new, after 10 years, Stupid for Movies?
One other thought.
Huh?
One other thought. There are no Americans nominated in the cinematography category. Not one. Americans need to learn to be better cinematographers.
And why do you think that is?
I think it is because it is still valued as an art in other countries. I think film schools, especially in Australia, in Denmark, in France, in you know, Poland, that they teach cinematography not as just not as like just a craft where you have to capture what's happening, but you're an artist. You paint with the camera, you paint with light. I think that is still very much part of the tradition, especially in Europe, where they see cinematography as kind of an heir to Flemish painting and, you know, the arts of the Renaissance. So it's not seen that way here. Here it's like you got to get it on TikTok. Got to get it on TikTok.
I also like the fact that people had tipped Belfast as possibly being a best cinematography nominee. And I know everyone thought that the black and white photography was so lustrous. I thought that thing looked so digital to me. It took me right out of the movie multiple times, the cinematography of Belfast.
I thought Belfast deserved a cinematography nomination. I also thought Licorice Pizza deserved a nomination. I thought they were both outstanding. I can tell you exactly what shots were amazing in both of them. And I think in terms of composition, those are the two best shot movies of the year. However, I'm not in the cinematographer's branch.
So wait, we just had a comment I saw.
Oh,
from,
yeah. U.S. films have this odd trend of backlighting everyone to death, so you can't see anyone.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And you know why that is? Because it's easy and fast.
Right.
And therefore, you know, less expensive.
And does any of it have to do with the actors in terms of like, hey, don't go too bright on me, go a little Barbara Walters filter on me? I'd rather have some backlighting.
No. I think in the age of digital cinematography, and Ridley Scott has talked about this too, it is easy now, you know, because film is expensive, but, you know, a card that you pop into the camera, or, you know, you're connected to a multi-terabyte drive, you know, the sky's the limit. You can record as much as you want. So I think now they just put a whole bunch of digital cameras out there. They light not for the shot, but for all the cameras simultaneously, which tends to really kind of distill everything into this dull backlit, you know, mush. And you shoot faster, and you shoot with more cameras simultaneously. It's cheaper, and you cut the schedule down, and, you know, it's a financial consideration, and everything here is about the financial considerations, and it's hurting cinematography.
I mean, Ridley Scott, after the House of Gucci screening, Ridley Scott spoke, and he said that he rolls upwards of 8 cameras on a scene. And if you roll 8 cameras on a scene, you can't just light for one beautiful shot with one beautiful 35 millimeter camera. You've now got to light the shot so that it can look decent and cuttable for all 8 of these cameras.
Well, you're lighting a reality show, right? So when I directed that kind of stuff, I directed 3 or 4 cameras and just shoot. And that's why we try to mostly go outside, right? You're in daylight with some, you know, with some things to block off the sun occasionally. And then when I was directing little shorts for Comedy Central, I would do the same thing. And cinematographers at the time were like, what? I go, well, let's just do 3 cameras so we make sure everything's covered. Because, you know, it was like a Comedy Central TV show. It wasn't an art. But yeah, that's interesting, right? It's like, you just, as a director, I don't want to miss anything. Let's just cover everything, and it's cheap to do because it's just a card.
Yeah.
So good point, Wade. I mean, it's an okay point.
It's a good point. Give him some credit. It's a good point.
All right.
Wade, by the way, may I just say that whatever doctor's office you're calling from has great Wi-Fi.
Thank you.
Put that out there.
It looks like he's been giving blood the whole time.
Wade, what is your sleep bed number? That's all I want to know.
Do you need you need an orange or some water?
You know, after this show, absolutely.
Exactly.
All right, so let's wrap this up. We got Daniel. Wonderful to see you guys back. Awesome episode. Chemistry between you guys. It's okay. Just as magical as he remembers from the classic episodes.
Thank you for that, Daniel. I would really prefer to be in the same room so that I can goof on Wade in person.
It's
But
gonna be there.
until that
build a
happens next
studio.
year in Jerusalem.
We'll-
Until
we'll
that
build-
happens, we have
We'll
to
build
be
a
on-
studio. I prefer the older, funnier, stupid for movies, but you know.
We do the best we can. But who knows? Look, here's the thing. Now, you know, this we came back after 8 years to do this Oscar special. We're glad you guys enjoyed it. I enjoyed doing it. Mike, he busted his butt for probably to get this thing together. Probably 20 minutes. Busted his butt.
And I
He
paid
worked
like
really hard.
$20 for this special software thing,
Amazing.
and our
That's right.
$60,000, you know, TriCaster sitting in the closet.
That which will never be used again.
Welcome to the new world.
But you never know. This may not be the last you see or hear of Stupid for Movies.
All right, thanks guys. Thanks everybody for joining. Thank you, Wade. Thank you, Mark, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, guys.